Hey everyone, what's up? It's Finch here, and today we're going to be discussing Spectre in the SSOU metagame. For those of you that didn't see my video yesterday, I went on to discuss Pheromosa in the SSOU metagame, analyzing what sets it used, how effectively it was with those sets, what potentially checked or countered those sets, and in addition to that, if I believe Pheromosa was broken in the SSOU metagame, as part one of a two-part metagame Monday special for the holiday season to begin. Why not? Now today I'm going over Spectre, a Pokemon that I also view as quite controversial in the metagame. What does Spectre do? How it does it? What potentially can keep it in check or counter it? And in addition to that, do I believe it's broken in the metagame? So first and foremost, there are a couple different variants of Spectre, much like Pheromosa, except its versatility is confined into a much smaller pool of moves and much less coverage, but this coverage that it has, it arguably does just as much as Pheromosa's coverage does, in a sense that ghost moves are amazing if you don't face a normal type, and normal types are few and far between. If you don't face a Blissey, then it's really just like Obstagoon and kind of Diggersby that are other viable. Normal types, you've seen some rare usage of Porygons. I guess that's one thing. But yeah, all in all, I don't believe that there is a ton that counters Spectre because of that. Most dark types are actually finding themselves more and more susceptible to these sets. For example, with these HP EVs, you could live things like a Foul Play or Knockoff, eventually for Mandibuzz behind Substitute once you hit the Will-O-Wisp on them. And that's kind of bread and butter of Spectre's Nasty Plot set. In particular, I like Nasty Plot, Hex, Substitute, and Will-O-Wisp. It gets the aforementioned sequence on the Mandibuzz. It does really well against other things as well. You could even run Calm Mind over Nasty Plot with a bit more bulk and live things like Heatrans, Lava Plumes eventually, and whatnot. And it just can get out of control really quickly, and it's amazingly strong as well. If you look at it, it has 145 base special attack, which allows for Hex and or Shadow Ball to do ridiculous damage, but then you get to the drawback of Spectre, and that is that it doesn't actually get many moves that are strong offensively. Going through its move pool, let's look at the especially offensive moves. Its attack stat is abysmal 65, so let's look at what moves it gets on the special side. It gets Dark Pulse, which doesn't really hit anything that ghost moves don't hit, but at least does neutral damage to normal types. Okay. Hex, that's good. Okay. Shadow Ball, it's really good. And then you're like, wait a minute. All of the moves are not actually special moves. Let's go to the normally useless moves. You get Hyper Beam, Mud Shot, not really the Uproar. Those are all of your options. It has the most limited special move pool of them all. Look, it's this. You get Snarl, Swift, Snore, Round. There's not much there, needless to say. All in all, this is quite unfortunate for something like Spectre, which with a move like Aura Sphere or Focus Blast or Surf or Flamethrower would probably just be uber already. In my honest opinion, it's just that crazy how much it can scale out of control. When you also consider its ability Grimday, which is basically a special Moxie. And you get a kill on, say, Weaken Heatran with your Hex or your Shadow Ball, all of a sudden you now have another boost in your special attack and you're even stronger. And coming off of 130 base speed, it's no surprise that this thing's hard to take out. Oftentimes rendering teams to firing off Pokemon in hopes of getting a revenge kill, or running things like Teleport Blissey into Specs Dragapult with Infiltrator. And oftentimes if teams lack that type of combination on their squad, then they have to run one of a specific pool of dark types, which Pokemon such as Mandibuzz don't even necessarily reliably beat it either. So, all in all, it's a very restrictive Pokemon, arguably even more restrictive than Pheromosa. However, when it does meet its match, it's definitely going to be rendered a bit less useful. It doesn't have things like U-turn and an abundance of coverage moves like Pheromosa, and it's not as fast or just quite as strong on both ends of the spectrum, not as versatile, if you will. So, yeah, there are definitely some downfalls of it. In fact, one could argue that Spectre is a very high ceiling Pokemon, even one of the highest ceiling Pokemon in the tier, but also a very low floor Pokemon as well. And to that, you might add, okay, then teams of Spectre, they kind of are support reliant, as they need to function to abuse Pokemon that might keep it in check or keep it countered, which is very much the case. That is true. However, when you look at Spectre's ceiling and how well it does against unprepared teams, or how much it limits teams in the confines of actually preparing for it, because those confines, it doesn't allow, not the most wide array of Pokemon can actually keep it in check, if you will. So, moreover, Spectre itself, the impact it has is arguably an unhealthy one in and of itself. So, there are two very different sides of the coin you could look at depending on which side you are on. I completely understand both personally, but right now we're going to go through the sets first and foremost. I don't want to get too far off of the agenda. The first one, and again, the 144 HP allows you to lift things like Foul Play back to Substitute, I believe. It also nice bulk in general. With 100 base HP, 60-80 defense actually goes a long way. SPECTRIER is not the most frail Pokemon. It's a little frail on the physical side, but overall, it actually is very passable bulk for a Pokemon that's this fast and this strong. It really allows for some things to happen. But yeah, no, Nasty Plot Hex Wolf, it's also really good when used with Toxic Spikes or things like Toxapex and Heatran, the things that can really spread status with ease, and I think that's really cool. The speed here allows you to outrun things like Tornadus T, Alakazam, and so on and so forth. You can't just max out the speed though if you're not scared of that, or Weavile or Talonflame. You can max out the speed if you are scared of them, but if you aren't, then definitely you can go for the Alakazam spread and then you max out special attack with the rest. And it's a pretty cool set. All in all, this is the one I've had the most success with, but I also quite like Choice Specs, which just hits super hard. You can run Uproar, Hyper Beam, or whatever else you want in that last level or Mudshot. I don't really have any preference myself. Yeah, no, Specs is definitely a set I thought like day one was really strong. Unfortunately, this set's going to struggle a bit more to break through Mandibuzz. You can just wrist it off. Same with things like Tyranitar and Incineroar. There's no real way around it. I guess Mudshot, but not really. All in all, I think this set, again, high ceiling. It does a lot of damage on prepared mat. If you bring a team with your Ghost Resist is like quote-unquote, especially defense Toxapex, then Shadow Ball or Hex eventually just going to mow through you. But if you actually bring a Mandibuzz or a Tyranitar, if you like hard prep for it, then okay, you might be in a bit better shape. You might be able to really minimize what SPECTRIER can do, especially when it's not like getting off wisps, when it's able to change up moves and sub up and whatnot, Nasty Plot up, etc. So yeah, there definitely is a bit of a saving grace element to facing SPECTRIER, despite it hitting so hard and being so threatening outright. And Sparf, it trades off the power, and it trades off some other things, such as say the ability to run Nasty Plot or switch up moves a lot. And in return, it becomes an absolute hyper offense killer. It really only is going to be losing the priority moves against his teams. Otherwise, Shadow Ball is just going to snowball completely out of control. So if you pair it with something like a Tapu Lele, or you're able to remove / triple priority users, then it's going to go a long way. Personally, it's my least favorite of the sets that you use on SPECTRIER. I also want to note that you can list something like a Sub Disable or a Sub Combined or a Taunt Wisp kind of set for SPECTRIER as like a main set. I really wanted to do 3 sets and other options because the other options are going to encompass those sets, and that's what I did for Pheromosa, so it's only fair. But those are all almost as equally viable as sets, if not more so than Scarf, in my opinion, probably even more so. But Scarf is the one that's getting listed in analysis right now on Smogon, so I want to keep it accurate to that. But regardless, yeah, Scarf is good. It was probably seen better days when the metagame had a bit more rampant hyper offense, when things like Kieran Black and Zygarde were allowed, arguably, especially due to its immunity to Zygarde's extreme speed, which is pretty cool. But yeah, no, it still serves a purpose in the metagame as it is. You can even run Modest on it if you wish, which still allows you to outrun things like Latios and Latias by a decent amount, and things like Thundurus, Gengar, Keldeo, Draco, etc. Kartana, but yeah, I mean, it's not a huge difference, and I quite like the speed here it is regardless. So yeah, Haze is nice for kind of like an anti-setup, like last-ditch effort move, I guess you could say, although locking into Haze isn't something that's particularly ideal, but you can make it work. And yeah, as for other options, again, Combine works instead of Nasty Plot. The power differential actually isn't a huge deal, especially if you max out special attack EVs. You're still going to be getting a lot of kills, especially if you run with Shadow Ball over Hex, but hey, it's neither here nor there. Disable works on subsets, and a lot of Pokemon Wave 1 will hit it. For example, if you disable an Urshifu with Wicked Blow, even if you're not choiced, it can't hit you with Sucker Punch because you can just sub or whisk, so all of a sudden it's walled by you. If you disable a Heatran, and all of a sudden all it's able to do is Earth Power, you can barely come back to sub, if even depending on your spread, and if your Combine reverse Nasty Plot, so on and so forth. If you disable something like a Mandibuzz, then all you can do is U-turn out, or if it's toxic, you can't do anything against you, and all of a sudden you just set up for days and days and days, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of things that really have only one thing that can hit ghost types neutrally or super effectively. Sometimes they have secondary or tertiary moves that hit you with like a resistance, and eventually they could break the sub, or they could pivot out, but that's about all there is to it, and that's insufficient for Pokemon that are meant to truly check and counter SPECTRIER. It completely flips the board, and that set isn't really super prominent enough to the extent that I view it as great, especially because the disable set's usually used in mono attacking with Dark Pulse because it wants to break through stall teams, and Dark Pulse allows you to Blissey and whatnot. But I think that disable does have some potential in the metagame. It's just kind of slightly cheesy right now and perhaps a little misguided right now, and I think it could get on the right track and it could be really good. Speaking of Dark Pulse, yeah, it's an option on some mono attacking sets if they don't want to be walled by ghost types over Hex. I personally don't like it. And Dark Pulse doesn't really give any complementary coverage over Shadow Ball or Hex besides hitting ghost types, so it's kind of whatever to me. I'm not a huge fan of it, truth be told, but it definitely has worked before. So yeah, I think that's worth noting. And lastly, again, a taunt, kind of like Taunt, Wisp, Hex, Sub / Combine / Nasty Plot set. Stallbreaker set is really cool, able to get things like Toxics and teleports out of the way, and just using them bulky Pokemon as setup fodder could go such a long way towards Spectrier's potential eventual sweep, or getting through like defensive core. And yeah, that obviously opens the game up quite a bit. Spectrier overall is a very disruptive Pokemon because of things like that and more. And that's why I think it's really good in the metagame right now. I think that it does a lot. It arguably warps team building to the extent some Pokemon that have previously been considered to be potential suspects or banned subjects have. I don't really see it as restrictive as things like Landorus or Genesect, which completely morphed the way counterplay was even approached in the metagame, let alone counterplay to them were approached. But I could definitely see some parallels to other Ubers. I don't think it's quite Spectrier level in terms of, I don't think it's quite Dracovish level in terms of restrictiveness, Spectrier that is, but I do think that it offers an awful lot to teams, and while it does have some drawbacks, it does have some matchups that might be a bit more worrisome, it overall is still a very strong Pokemon that you have to prepare for, and if you don't, then you're going to be punished more than just about anything else you neglect to prepare for, and that says an awful lot in my eyes. So because of that, personally, I think that Spectrier would be a good suspect. I don't believe it is as broken as something like Pheromosa. Pheromosa, I think, is more pressing and is a bit more broken due to the prevalent nature of its offensive presence in the metagame, as I outlined more so in the metagame Monday videos, Tuesday videos. So yeah, but I do believe that Spectrier offers enough to where it's suspect worthy, and I'd be leaning towards ban right now. I'm like 55-45 or 60-40, but I'd love to hear more from what you guys have to say. I do think that the downsides of Spectrier are something that the player base needs to consider, and the fact that there are some games where it just completely does nothing, leaves you in a 5-6 hole, and that arguably could be a death sentence for the wrong team at the wrong time. Some teams can overcome that. Some players especially can overcome that, but not everyone. And that's a huge opportunity cost. It's a huge risk that you have to be willing to take when bringing Spectrier to the game. But despite that, for a Pokemon with that downside, the upside, especially in games where teams aren't as prepared, it goes such a long way. And overall, instead of boiling games down to outplaying and whatnot, it makes it so that either you're using a normal type or a specific type of dark type, or you're not. And that alone is not the best dynamic for the metagame either. I don't know if that necessarily is a reason to keep it banned, or rather ban it to begin with, but I think there are a lot of things to factor in here, and I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and also be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, because we're going to be doing more videos this week. There might even be some sort of suspect later this week. We've been discussing more and more in the council chat. I can't leak the specifics yet, but personally, I would advocate for suspecting Pheromosa and then looking into Spectrier potentially afterwards. Other things on my radar, Bagirna and Urshifu, off the top of my head, but there are a lot of really solid Pokemon right now. Personally, I think looking at Pheromosa first is the best, because Pheromosa is the reason why we see so much Clefable and Toxics. One of the reasons we see so much, and I think it'd be interesting to see the metagame open up and be more offensive and potentially more proactive before we say, oh, things like Spectrier are too much, because if the metagame doesn't allow Spectrier in as much, or Urshifu in as much, then that could be interesting to see, for sure. And I'm really curious to see what the next development because of that would be. And I think that's going to be great to see. I'm really excited about SSU in general. I hope you guys are too. There's plenty of reason to be excited, and I hope you guys enjoy videos like these. I know this wasn't the most long, well thought out video on Spectrier. In fact, there was even less analysis on it than Pheromosa, arguably, but it's a pretty straightforward Pokemon, unlike Pheromosa. It only has a limited number of sets due to the fact that it has such a limited pool of special attacking moves, but it still does a lot. You get the bang for your buck with those moves and the sets, which says a lot about Spectrier as a Pokemon in my eyes. So yeah. Let me know what you guys thought below. If you guys want to see more, again, subscribe to the channel. And if you guys also want to keep up to date with me, join the Discord server where over 800 people just pop into a really nice lively chat. And be sure to follow me on Twitter as well. Alright guys, I hope you all have a great day. Be sure to stay safe, and whatever's going on, I promise things will be alright. Crazy times, obviously, but there's always Pokemon that's there for you, and I'm always here to provide some content. So I hope this guys made your day a little brighter. And you guys ever want to talk, always hit me up. Alright, bye guys. Peace.